Hey everyone, how's it going? I gotta tell you, it's one of those days. I'm, I feel like I'm in a brain fog. Not like a COVID brain fog, but like, I don't know, maybe it's sleep, maybe it's allergies. But I honestly, this whole week, I feel like I've been floating. And actually, the music I've been playing around with, making sounds with Pigments is definitely getting kind of deep and hypnotic. That's where we're ending up today, stylistically. And before I mumble along any further, welcome to another Techno Saturdays on 343 TV. Nice to be back. And I've been doing so many guests. I covered for Abe the other day, and that was nice just to get into making some music. And that's what we're doing today, too. Just playing around with the latest version of Pigments and focusing on additive synthesis with their new harmonic oscillator, I guess. And it's an interesting take on additive synthesis. I like it. And I'm just sort of getting to grips with what it can do and experimenting. So today's really going to be like, let's say, getting into it, getting a little bit deep and exploring. I do have a sketch I've started already, just so we're not starting from nothing. But yeah, hopefully you guys will roll along with me today while we fool around a little bit with this synthesizer. Nice little collection of people here in the chat so far. Hey, John H. Kingston III. Inevitably, he's the first one, almost always. Nice to have you back. Korean Jesus says this one gonna be good. I hope so. I hope so. Thank you very much. And hi, Taylor Deemer. Pigments is also one of my favorite instruments. It's a really great synthesizer. Hey, Kai Struckel. And our regular Twitch viewer, Mod Scientist, is in the house, and he's throwing up all these cool little emoticons, but I don't know if those come through on the YouTube chat. And hey, nice surprise, Kyle Geiger. Nice to have you here. Every now and then I like to drop in on his streams and see what he's up to, and it's good to have you here. So yeah, feel free to heckle me. And hey, who else is back? Simple Sam, nice to have you here. KRNX, hello. Bug Tank is back. Dot Initial Schottenspieler here, yes. So, of course, you all know, a lot of you are regulars. 343 TV is brought to you by 343 Labs, a music production school. We are starting up lots of classes. We're back in person in New York, and we've been running in-person classes at our location in Berlin for a little while. And, we do these streams here to spread the word, to grow our community, to share what we do, and to let you know about the school. And speaking of growing community, we have our Discord channel that's, kind of growing slowly. We have events going on fairly often. Our latest event is a sample challenge. Our fearless leader, Max Wild, is a saxophone player, and he provided the sample for this challenge. So I don't know. I think I mentioned this last time. It's sort of a challenge for you guys into techno and electro and everything. What might you do with a saxophone? And so go check out our Discord. All the links to for the school are down in the description. Our Discord link is in the description. Come check us out. Join up. See what we're doing. See if you're interested in signing up for any classes. We also do private lessons if you want some more focused one-on-one experience. And we've got a spammer in the chat. Thomas, kick him out. So let's see. Where were we? I think we were going to make some crazy noise, or actually not too crazy, some kind of deep, hypnotic, trippy noise today with Pigments using additive synthesis. One more thing, a little bit of more housekeeping before we start fooling around is, as usual, we have a giveaway. This week, the prize is a 343 Pro session of your choice. We've had a lot of interesting artists come in and demonstrate, how they do things, show you a workflow, make some music in front of you. It's a very intimate experience. It's kind of like, it's kind of like doing this here, but long form and interactive. And I don't know, sign up for that if you're interested. They're inexpensive, and even if you don't win, you should come check it out. But yeah, the link will be here to enter the giveaway. in the chat, and we'll announce the winner before the end of the show. Hey, Lucas Nolasco, you're doing a track? Awesome. Functor, hello too. And Lucas likes the sax sample. Great. I still haven't checked it out. I need to go listen to it. All right. So initial question, do I get access to Pigments with a normal license, or is this pay per version? Not sure. I mean, yeah, if you can rent it through Splice if you don't want to lay out all the money all at once. There's a long, they have a pretty good demo period, right? Anyway, I think that's what you're asking. If I'm not answering you correctly, you can always rephrase your question. And okay, enough business. Let's get down to music. And here we are. Here's my Ableton Live. And I don't know, let's just start listening to what I have in mind here. This is sort of, oh, that's not what I meant to play. I'm on the wrong scene here, but let's go to this first scene. That was for later. And pretty much everything in here is Pigments. I've got multiple instances of Pigments going on. I gotta say, when you add a lot of voices and a lot of harmonics in using the additive synthesis here, it is a little bit CPU intensive. One thing to take note of when you're doing this kind of stuff. But anyway, let's see what we got here. The percussion is all samples today, pretty much, except for one. There's a drum synth in there, but let's focus in on this first sound. Kind of drony, percussive thing going on. All right, so this is Pigments. This is the harmonic engine. Gives you a nice view of what's going on in the sound spectrally. And, you know, spectral is a good kind of frame of mind to be in, thinking about all of the frequencies contained within the sound. And when you're doing additive synthesis, you have some really fine control over the harmonics, the overtones, or also referred to as partials in the sound. And how you can move those around. So kind of the character you get out of this thing, it really is based a lot on how the harmonics of the waveform are being modulated. And this one started out, it sounds kind of, let's listen to it again. And the MIDI's really simple. The notes, it's just playing a 16th note on one note. Where is it? Yeah, actually it's not even, it's just holding down one note for a bar. So all of the rhythm and everything, all of the movement, any melody you hear, any harmony you hear is all modulation inside of this one harmonic engine or oscillator. And there's some effects on there too. Actually, let's turn the effects off. I'll leave the compressor on so it stays loud. So I started the sound with the idea of, you know, just exploring the different types of modulation, partial modulation. There's 3 partial modulation modes in this engine: window, cluster, and shepherd. Window lets you kind of pick a specific, you know, narrow or wide part of the frequency spectrum and to move that around. And that's what's happening here. I have it set up so we're hearing very clearly the overtones, and it's sweeping up and down, and it's playing that. There's a little bit of a melody going up and down, and that's we're hearing individual partials as the window sweeps across. So let's try this. I'm gonna try to recreate this sound, or do something similar. It'll probably come out sounding totally different. That happens every time I try to recreate something. It just goes in a new direction, which is good actually. But just with this idea in mind of like exploring this type of modulation. So all right, and I'm gonna turn off that Pigments because I don't want to keep taxing my CPU too much. And let's throw on a new MIDI track and load up a new Pigments. And go to new presets. Change the engine to harmonic. And to start with, you just hear what sounds like a sawtooth wave. And the view you have here is showing you all of the partials in the waveform. The first one is the fundamental, and then you see them as they go up, they're reducing in amplitude. And that's pretty much almost a sawtooth wave. It's not a full sawtooth wave because it doesn't have all of the high frequency information that a full sawtooth wave would have. And that's because the number of partials is limited, right? And this is the sort of the first thing to think about when you're using this harmonic engine is the partial limit. You can go from 8 to 512. 512 is the sort of more high frequency, more high resolution. It also uses way more CPU, and it can make sounds that are very, very, very bright. So, you know, the default is 128. I've been kind of sticking around there for the most part, or 256. And if you sweep that partial knob down, it's reducing. It sounds like a filter, right? But it's really just reducing the amplitude of those individual partials. Each one of those partials is just a sine wave. Max is here. What's up? If I take it up to 512, you can see that the upper partials extend off the view there, and it sounds brighter and sharper. Let's go back to 128. All right. And let's go over to the window. You can see here there's some, well, I want to use shape first. What I want to be able to do is kind of filter out all of the partials except for the ones that I want to hear in the window. The window size is all the way down. It's as small as it can be. I'm going to bring the tilt down, and you can see it's reducing the amplitude of all of those overtones, or those upper partials. And now we're just hearing the fundamental. And I am trying to get this set up so we can sweep. Let's bring the volume of the window up. There we go. Now, as I move the position, we're moving the position of that window, and it's just sort of like zooming in only on those upper partials. And you're hearing just sweeping through the harmonic series, or the overtone series. All right. Now, I can also, there's two spectral sort of shapers here. I'm not exactly sure what Arturia calls them, but they're kind of like filters. It's, you know, changing which overtones, which harmonics come through. It's got a high pass and a low pass filter. And I want to set it up so we don't really hear. All right, let's bring the depth up, right? Bringing the depth up, it's not exactly filtering, it's reducing amplitude of individual partials, but it sounds like you're filtering it. Now that I've increased the depth and have the high pass on, I'm losing my fundamental. And when I sweep this position up and down, you're only hearing the partials. Right, and that was the beginning of my sound. It was like I was trying to sort of use the partials to create a melody and use modulation to change that melody. Oh, that's a nice comment. Thanks, Max. Watching me make patches relaxes him more than really. You're too kind. All right, so let's try to get this going with the beats. Since the sounds that I'm making today are kind of like deep and trippy and weird, I decided to have like a really heavy chugging kick going just to keep the energy up. So pretty much, I'm just going to put in a note. Why I picked C# today, I have no idea. Totally random. And right, it's just kind of adding in like a sub drone like that. And what we want to do is get this modulating. All right. Let's turn that up a little bit. Now, let's use a function. I tend to go to functions more and more in Pigments because, you know, all right, these envelopes are great. They're easy. They act the way envelopes are supposed to act. They're not overcomplicated. The functions are where these can be either an envelope or an LFO, and you can do rhythmic modulation like sequences. You can make any envelope shape you want. You can add as many breakpoints as you want. So I don't know. Let's see what happens if I just start modulating the position of that window and create a kind of a groove with those overtones sweeping up and down. That's already cool. It reminds me of some kind of early mid-90s ravey stuff. What am I thinking of? Test, overdub, something like that. Let's go up instead of down. And, you know, as the partials get closer together, you know, as they go higher, the distance between each partial gets closer, and we're kind of hearing a rhythm being created now. So I can kind of I can change the timing of this by the rate and the direction of the modulation. So, you know, if I don't want it to speed up so quickly, you can hear that the higher frequencies sound like they're coming in faster, right? Maybe if I lower the amplitude a little bit. But then, okay, now I'm losing the higher notes. If I change the curve of it, it's almost like it's not exactly, I can't quantize it, but I can kind of figure out the timing and sort of give it almost like I'm trying to beat match how it's sweeping up and down. I don't mind that. All right. Simple, nice, hypnotic. Let's see if we can. I'm gonna change the curve a little bit. I just accidentally added another breakpoint halfway through that bar, and it changed the timing a little bit. I kind of like it. Let's change the curve of this one. Now it sounds a little more quantized. All right. It's cool. It's interesting as far as sort of using the harmonic series with these pure sine waves to create a sequence. It's very dark. Let's try to brighten it up a little bit. So one of the things that the harmonic engine has as well is the ability to do FM. So if you look down here, you've got a modulator, and you have different all of the engines, I think, have this in them. Maybe not the virtual analog one, but you can use any of these waveforms to modulate the frequency of or other things in the engine. So in here, you've got an amount of modulation for the window, and you have amount of modulation for the ratio, which is sort of changing the tuning of the overtone series. Let's see what happens if I bring that in. It's a totally different sound now. That's starting to sound a little bit like psytrancey. We need to be careful here. Let's try a higher frequency. I'm going to go up an octave and see if that sounds a little sharper. All right, let's go up even up to 24. I'm keeping it to octaves because I know that the frequencies being created by the FM are going to stay harmonic, not going to get noisy. That's a little better. Let's see what happens with the FM on the gain of the window. All right, that's interesting. Let's tighten that up a little bit. So I like the dark sine wave, just purity. Maybe we can get some of that brighter FM stuff to be more percussive and just part of the sound to be bright, not the whole thing when I bring up that amount of modulation. I think we can use another function, but actually let's keep it simple. Let's go to an LFO. Yeah, let's go to an LFO and get this to be... We'll start with that, just with like a downward ramp, and let's get it syncing. Sixteenth notes. So now that repeating 16th note synced sawtooth is modulating the amount of FM to the ratio. Let's make that unipolar. So it's only going from 0 to 1, it's not going down to -1. All right, let's try it on the gain. I think I like it better on this one. Okay. All right. That's not exactly what I had before, but that's similar to how I got started. And just as a way of exploring the beginning of what you can do with modulation in the harmonic engine. But I'm going to try to, I don't know, let's add some effects to this and add the drums in. And I'm just going to try to sculpt a little bit more, see if I can get it working better with my groove. I have an idea. So you have control over the panning of even or odd harmonics. In split mode here, you can see, 1, 3, 5, 7, etc., and 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. can be panned left and right. And if you ever wanted to make like big, wide bass sounds, for example, that work really well summed to mono, so they don't go out of phase, this is a really good trick to do. Actually, I know this isn't exactly a bass sound, but I could get a super wide. Actually, it is kind of bassy. It didn't start as a bass line, but it turned into one. And now it sounds super wide, but because none of the same frequencies are going out of phase with each other, it should sum perfectly to mono. You should be able to do super wide sounds that don't have phase cancellation, which I think is a pretty cool trick to be able to do. All right, I'm going to shape this just a little bit more. Let's do the volume as well with the envelope, with the LFO. Little, just slightly tighter. Now what I'm doing now is increasing the window size. So we're hearing more partials. And it's sounding now more like a continuous straight waveform. And we're not hearing the moving partials as much. I think that's a good candidate for some automation in the arrangement. I'm going to go ahead and assign a macro to that. Let's see, macro 1. Give it a range. Pigments has such good visual feedback. I mean, it's amazing just to see the spectrum change as you modulate that. To hear, you can see exactly what's happening. All right. Let's compare it to what I started with earlier. Yeah, this one kept more of, this has a more separation between the low bass note and the little melody on top happening from the sweeping of those harmonics with the window going up and down. I like them both. All right. How are we doing in the chat? It's almost halfway through. It's funny, like getting into these little details and time starts flying. Y'all are talking about Max. Functor asks, where is his question? Can you choose which partials are included, for example, to get more of a square wave sound? Yeah, let's try that. All right. So we were talking about odd or even harmonics. Square waves are all odd, right? And sawtooth waves are every harmonic. So I'm going to assume if I go over here, oop, that's just sort of a preset there. Let's go to, all right. There we go. So right now we're listening to just the odd harmonics, and that, you know, especially if I bring the partial limit up, that's pretty much a square wave. And then that shape becomes kind of a, you know, you're morphing from square wave to sawtooth wave to, what waveform is all even harmonics? Let's look at the oscilloscope. I should know off the top of my head, right? It still looks kind of like. Interesting. Not exactly sawtooth wave. There's something round going on there. Also, what we're hearing is it's still limited in over. It's 512. I mean, to do a full spectrum waveform, we need to go further than 512 partials. But that would just be ridiculous in terms of processing power, probably. So, but anyway, yeah. Quick answer is that's a square wave. And then to get more complex from there, that's what this section is. The spectrums. It's kind of like filtering. It lets you apply different shapes. If I go back to all harmonics. There we go. So this is where you have more precise control over which partials you hear and what the wave shape is. And modulating that, that's definitely, there's a lot of power there. Cool. Riley Gine says, kind of like a shark fin wave. It did look a little bit like a shark fin, didn't it? Cool. So Let's see what other sounds I've got going on here. I really like this one. So, play it. I'm going to turn the filter off so we can hear all the highs. And I have this one at the full 512 partials. There's also a lot of reverb on there and delay. Let's turn those effects off just so we can focus in on what the waveform is doing. And here, instead of using window, I'm using cluster. So this is going to let me pick groups of partials and change I'm not exactly clear on what is happening, to be honest, but it sounds like there's phase shifting or detuning happening between these clusters. I've already broken my sound. Another thing that's going on in here, there's a lot of FM. A lot of the brightness and metallic sort of character of this is happening from that FM. So, before I break the sound any further, all right, I just hit undo enough times, so I went back to the beginning here. Let's make a new Pigments and see if we can't get something similar. All right. New preset and harmonic engine. Again, starting with this kind of flat sounding sawtooth wave with not enough highs. And let's go in and check out cluster and see what happens. There we go. Increasing the density. Already amazing for some kind of drones or atmospheric textures or bass sounds with some interesting modulation. You can see I'm shifting these groups of partials around, increasing or decreasing their density and changing their tuning relevant to each other. We also have, if I change the ratio, that's going to sort of spread them out. Right. And all right, let's try to focus this sound before I start wandering around too much. I'm going to go for that kind of clangy hit that I had before. So let's increase the release time. It's kind of bell-like in a way, right? I like it with the density higher. That's cool. This is going to sound really good with the imaging. Split, again, is odd and evens, panning individually. We also have random. So you're going to hear sort of random numbers of partials panning around. It's a little more subtle. All right. And then we have periodic. Sounds like, oh yeah, you can see it's sort of like comb filtering. We're hearing, there's like a modulation of which partials are panning left and right. That sounds cool as well. I already feel like making a new track out of this one. That is ridiculous. Is this even going to work with the groove I have? Let's see. All right. All right, that's another thing I had. So I got totally out of tune there. That's one of the things that happens when you start shifting those clusters around, or actually the sort of the partials in general, is sometimes you lose your fundamental pitch. So the same note I was playing before is not in tune anymore. I was playing a C sharp for these other sounds. Now, if I play an A, it sounds about right. Let's rein this in a little bit. I'm going to make, rather than doing like a big kind of bell sound, I'm going to do something more percussive with it. So let's change that envelope shape a little bit. Oh, I just messed up another sound. It gets confusing when you have a bunch of the same plugin. All right. Let's do a little velocity modulation of that. If it feels a little static, every stab is exactly the same. Right, that one there, the tilt is sort of acting like a filter. It's, you know, we're hearing more of the upper partials or less of the upper partials. And could definitely do velocity for that. Let's put a delay. That's an easy one for this. I like that. Simple. Simple and clean. How can I mess this sound up? Try FM. Maybe not. Needs a higher frequency if I'm going to do it, so it doesn't get too wobbly. Better. All right. I think I like that. I want to give a little, I'm going to give some of that noise that happens when I increase the FM. Let's give an envelope to that as well. Let's give envelope 2. There we go. It's funny, the kind of sounds I'm getting out of it doing this, it's very, I could do almost exactly the same thing with an FM synth, really, to be honest. It just, I think it goes to, well, part of the reason is I'm using FM right now, but when you're just working with pure sine waves like this and then add modulation to it, you know, that's where additive and FM can be similar. Let's see. Simple Sam says some noise from the new utility engine would be nice to add. That's a good, I like that idea. Let's try that. Even just that already works. It's making it, you know, I've got kind of a clangy percussion sound now with some little bit of white noise. Let's give that an envelope. Different envelope. Try envelope 3 instead. Better. Nice suggestion, Sam. All right. So I have another element going on here. Let's get rid of that bright, intense one for a second. All right. That's I'm kind of on the fence about this sort of. It's kind of a chord stab, but it's soft. It's got a long attack on it, and it's crunchy and sort of dirty. I think it just needs more work. Let's go and check out this one. I really like what's going on with this. Oh. Sorry, this one. Like, this is an example of like something I like about additive synthesis. Just how like pure and crystalline and detailed that is. So yeah, this is another one that started out using clusters. And I started out kind of trying to tune the cluster to a chord, which can be really interesting. Let's see if I can come up with a new sound that's similar, that I like as much as that one. All right, new preset again. Solo. It's funny. This whole time I've been kind of avoiding sawtoothy sounds and kind of going in for more of these metallic or clean or clear sort of sine wave kind of sounds. Let's go back into cluster. I'm bringing that tilt down again. Let's lower the number of partials. No, we need the higher ones. I know it sounds like I'm just making weird Star Trek Energizer noises, or transporter noises, but I'm listening for something. I'm like listening to the weird detuning and noise happening with those partials until I hear something harmonic that sticks out at me. That's getting there, right? It's like rich. It's not bright, but it's still got this sharp clearness to it because it's all sine waves. All right, no FM on this sound. Simple Sam says these sounds are like signals from space. I agree. Let's add some effects to this. Let's give it some atmosphere. And, one of the fun new effects in Pigments 3 is the pitch shifting delay. I'm going to do a fifth. So 7 semitones. And let's see which. That works. All right, so you're hearing every echo is going up by an octave. We also have octave up and octave down. I think octave up sounds good. Going to offset the stereo of each echo. And let's get this shaped into something more like a pad. Pan the odd and even partials. And I just broke it. I felt I had filtered out the fundamental here, like this high pass filter in that sort of spectral section. But then I felt like I lost the note. So I just brought in the modulator, the volume of that sine wave on the bottom. And now I can hear what pitch I'm playing. All right, now let's see if that's musically useful. All right. Get the bass line going again. It's okay. It's almost too, I almost want to, I could just filter it. I was thinking it's a little too much ringy in the mids. I'll just think subtractively now and smooth it out with the low pass filter. That's better. But it still has the nice detail of the detuned clusters coming out of the harmonic engine. Okay. That grows nicely just with that simple filter sweep going up. Nice. How are we doing? How's everybody in the chat? Riley says, this is more about using sine waves to create complex waveforms. Granular is more about chopping and replaying the chunks of sound. Yeah, I guess you guys are talking about what's the difference with granular. I would think that additive and granular would make a nice combo. And that's another nice thing about Pigments. You know, it's a hybrid synth. They call it polychromatic, right? Many colors. It's a wavetable synth. It's an additive synth now. There's a sampler in it, and the sampler has a granular engine, so it's a granular synth. And it's just a basic subtractive virtual analog synthesizer. And those can be combined together. So yeah, it would be interesting to combine this with a granular layer. And we could try that. I need to find the right sort of sound to layer with it. That reminds me of something I wish that Pigments could do, and that is to cross-modulate between the engines. That would, I don't know, maybe it's too much. I can't imagine that someone, whoever's developing this for Arturia, must have thought of this, and I assume that there's maybe a processing power or some kind of technical limitation, but if I could have one engine modulate the other engine, that would be incredible. Serum's oscillators can cross-mod. A lot of different synthesizers have cross-mod. This does complex modulation inside of the engine, but as far as I know, there's no way to like have engine 1 modulate engine 2. Anyway, that's just an aside, something I was thinking about the other day. So we haven't demonstrated everything that the harmonic engine can do. That's fine. You don't have to use every little bit. I did have one more thing I wanted to look at, since I've been kind of looking mainly at the difference between the window and the cluster and, you know, the different modulation modes. We haven't fully investigated the harmonic spectrums, you know, but they're basically filters. That's how they act. And you can sort of morph and modulate between them, and it affects what is happening with the other stuff, like the cluster and the ratio and everything. There's one more modulation mode that I was just starting to play with. And let's switch over to my other sort of groove that I was playing around with. It's reminding me a little bit of it's a little bit minimal and groovy, early 2000s kind of a sound for me. And this sound I was experimenting with just how everything was modulating. And yeah, it's really simple with the MIDI doesn't show you the whole story here. I'm making something kind of rhythmic with the modulation. And I'm using, oh right, I almost forgot what was happening with this sound, but basically I've just started experimenting with microtuning recently, so you have different scales that you can load. I believe it's compatible with the Scala file. So I was playing around with sort of non-chromatic, like typical chromatic, like different types of scales. So that's one thing that's happening here. And another thing was just sort of playing around with key tracking to do modulation of the parameters of the synth. So like the partials and the ratio are changing based on the notes that are being played in the sequencer. So this is actually what's doing the pattern right now. It's not what the MIDI in the clip is doing. All right, so that's just breaking down what's happening there. Let's look at the last sort of modulation mode, which is Shepherd. And basically what it lets you do is, if anybody in the chat know what the Shepherd scale or the Risset scale or a Shepherd tone or a Risset tone is? Someone must know. Anybody? All right. So I'll show you. So in Shepherd mode, it's using the idea of it creates an illusion of endless rising or falling. You know, you can do this just with pitch and amplitude. If you think of what a barber pole looks like as it spins, it looks like it's just going up and up and up, or just going down and down and down. It's the same effect we use for the Smith & Selway track, Total Departure, where it just has an endless rising effect on going the whole track. So this lets you do that endless shifting with the partials. And we've just announced our winner. Congratulations to Simple Sam. Yes, you get a free 343 Pro session of your choice. Congratulations. And yeah, that should be fun. We've got some good guests coming up. So you get to choose which one you get to see. Right. So Riley says barber pole filter. Yeah, kind of like barber pole filter, but it's actually modulating the partials in the waveform, fading them in and out. So as they come in, they fade up from silence, and then they get to a middle point, and then they fade out. And as you have multiple partials doing this, it gives you this illusion of an endless rising effect. So let's see if we can get that working. And I don't even know, it doesn't matter what pitch I'm playing here. So all right, so this parameter, this phi, it's a calculation. So you can see if you watch the partials as I play. And it's just an octave. But you can see that the fundamental pitch bends up and all the overtones pitch bend up and they fade in and out. So as soon as I start moving this up, you'll hear a frequency from below the fundamental start to fade in, and then it pitches up to where it started. So in order to get that modulating with this continuous rising or falling effect, all you need is basically a sawtooth wave. So if I change this to triangle, and then change the symmetry to 0. All right, we want perfect triangle, 0 on the symmetry. And then we need to assign that to the phi control. All right, that's going the wrong way. I want it to go. And this was a little tricky to figure out, but basically it needs to be, unless you've got it set to unipolar, if it's normally if it's a biphase, like positive negative modulation, the amount needs to be at 0.5, and then the amount of modulation needs to be 0.5. So it's going down. Let's reverse the modulation so it goes up. So I'm going negative down to 0.5. And let's slow the rate down. Yep, there it's working. Now, if I add FM to it, it messes up the illusion a little bit. But you can play with the ratio. I've noticed it doesn't modulate perfectly depending on what your settings are, but you can get it sounding very smooth, and you don't hear that little bump when the modulation recycles. If you take that, you put some delay on it. Anyway, maybe some of you know that Total Departure track. It's kind of similar to what we did in that. So, gosh, it's 2:00. I told you things were going to get weird and deep today. It's definitely what happened with the sounds. Thanks to everybody for hanging out with me today. Thanks for stopping in, Kyle. It was nice to see you here. And congrats again to our winner, Simple Sam. You've been a regular viewer for a while now, so I'm really, really happy that you won this week. And hey, Daniel from IntelliGel is here. Quadrature, phase separated by 90 degrees FM tones. See, I know you know your stuff. Thanks for stopping by again. Riley Guide says, this is what my tinnitus would sound like if I sampled it. Yeah, it doesn't rise, though. I have it, too. I have ringing in my ears from DJing in loud venues for too many years. But yeah, mine just stays one pitch, so I don't know. So glad you enjoyed it, Martin. Live Society, yeah, I agree. This was fun too, and I feel like I was sort of wandering a little bit today, but somehow the sounds came out good. So I'll be back next time with a guest. It's the return, I believe, if I got the date right. I've got Carl Finlow back for round 2. We're going to get deep into his workflow again for electro and what he does. He's a great guest, so I'm happy to have him back. And that's it. Check out our links in this description. Join the sample challenge. Check out the saxophone sample from Max and submit to that. We're going to have everybody. We're going to judge and do everything online. I believe they're going to be doing the stream on June 1st, if I have it right. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And all right, I'm going to go. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.